The plastic hospital bracelet still clung to Sarah's wrist as she fumbled with the hotel key card, her hands trembling from exhaustion and the weight of 17 sleepless nights. Room for 112. That's what the kind nurse had written on the crumpled piece of paper, along with the words Children's Cancer Foundation Emergency Housing. But the numbers blurred through her tears, and her mind, clouded by grief and desperation, read for 121 instead. Sarah Chen had always believed she was strong enough to handle anything life threw at her. Single motherhood, working 3 jobs to make ends meet, her ex-husband's abandonment when their daughter Emma was just 2 years old. She'd weathered it all with the fierce determination that had carried her family from poverty to a modest but loving home. But childhood leukemia? That was a monster she couldn't fight with overtime shifts at the diner or weekend house cleaning gigs. The key card beeped green, and Sarah pushed open the door, expecting to find the simple accommodations the foundation had promised. Instead, she stepped into luxury that made her breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the glittering Chicago skyline, while marble floors stretched beneath her worn sneakers. This couldn't be right, but exhaustion overrode confusion. She just needed 5 minutes to collect herself before returning to Emma's bedside. That's when she saw him. Alexander Reeves sat in a leather armchair by the window, his usually impeccable suit wrinkled, his dark hair disheveled. But it wasn't his appearance that stopped Sarah's heart. It was what he held in his hands, a small, brown teddy bear with one missing eye and a red ribbon around its neck. Emma's bear. Mr. Buttons, excuse me, Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. That's my daughter's bear. Alexander looked up, and Sarah saw something she'd never expected to find in the eyes of one of America's most ruthless business magnates. Tears. Real, honest tears that mirrored her own. You must be Emma's mother, he said quietly, setting the bear gently on the side table. I've been waiting for you. Sarah's legs nearly gave out. How do you? Who are you? Why do you have Mr. Buttons? Alexander stood slowly, and for the first time since Emma's diagnosis, Sarah saw kindness in a stranger's eyes instead of pity. My name is Alexander Reeves, and your daughter, she saved my life. The words made no sense. Sarah's mind raced through the past weeks, the endless hospital corridors, the cheerless waiting rooms, the parade of doctors with their grave expressions and gentle voices. When could Emma, barely conscious and fighting for every breath, have encountered this man? Please, sit down, Alexander said, gesturing to the sofa. Let me explain. Sarah remained standing, her maternal instincts on high alert. Where did you get that bear? Emma never goes anywhere without it. The nurses know not to. She gave it to me. Alexander interrupted gently. 3 weeks ago, in the hospital elevator. The memory hit Sarah like a physical blow. 3 weeks ago was when Emma had insisted on walking to the gift shop by herself, wanting to feel normal for just a few minutes. Sarah had waited anxiously in the lobby, watching the elevator numbers light up as her daughter made the journey to the 3rd floor and back. I was visiting the hospital, Alexander continued, his voice heavy with emotion, not for medical care, but for other reasons. I'd received word that my company's latest acquisition had fallen through, taking with it a deal that would have saved thousands of jobs. I was angry, defeated. I felt like everything I'd worked for was crumbling. He moved to the window, his silhouette dark against the city lights. I was in that elevator, consumed by my own problems, when the doors opened on the pediatric floor. This little girl with a bright pink scarf got on, clutching this teddy bear and dragging in for pull behind her. Sarah's throat tightened. She remembered that day. Emma had been so proud of her new scarf, a gift from the hospital's volunteer program. She looked at me and said, "You look sad, mister. Are you okay?" Just like that, no fear, no hesitation. Here was this child, clearly fighting her own battle, and she was worried about a complete stranger. Alexander turned back to Sarah, and she could see the profound impact that brief encounter had left on him. I told her I was having a bad day at work. She nodded very seriously and said, "Sometimes when I'm scared about the medicine making me sick, Mr. Buttons helps me be brave. Maybe he can help you too." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth as she realized what had happened. Before I could protest, Alexander continued. She pressed this bear into my hands and said, "You can borrow him for today, but I need him back tomorrow because we're a team." The elevator opened on the ground floor, and she was gone. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as she imagined Emma's generous heart, even in her darkest moments, reaching out to comfort someone else. I went home that night and held this bear, Alexander said, his voice breaking slightly, and for the first time in years, I remembered what it felt like to have hope. Not hope based on stock prices or profit margins, but real hope, the kind that comes from human connection. He walked to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. The next morning, I restructured the entire deal. Instead of walking away, I invested my own money to make it work. Those jobs were saved. But more than that, I started asking myself what Emma would think of my choices. Sarah sank into the sofa, overwhelmed by the revelation that her daughter's simple act of kindness had rippled out into the world in ways she could never have imagined. I tried to return the bear the next day. Alexander continued, but Emma was in surgery. The day after that, she was too weak for visitors. I kept calling the hospital, kept trying to find a way to give Mr. Buttons back and to thank her properly. The surgery didn't go as planned, Sarah whispered. She's been unconscious for 2 weeks. Alexander nodded gravely. I know, I've been covering her medical expenses. Sarah's head snapped up. What? The experimental treatment she needs. It's not covered by insurance. The hospital told me about your situation when I explained why I was calling. I couldn't stand the thought that the little girl who saved my soul might not get the care she needs. Because of money, the room spun around Sarah. The mysterious benefactor the doctors had mentioned. The one who'd made Emma's treatment possible. It was him. This stranger who'd been touched by her daughter's pure heart. I don't understand, Sarah breathed. Why would you do that? You don't even know us. Alexander sat down across from her, Mr. Buttons between them like a bridge spanning their different worlds. Because Emma taught me something that my billions couldn't. That the most valuable thing we have to give is our compassion. She gave me hers when I needed it most, and I want to give her mine. Sarah stared at this man who commanded boardrooms and built empires, seeing him clearly for the first time. Beneath the expensive suit and powerful reputation was someone who'd been moved by a 7-year-old selfless gesture. The doctors called this morning, Alexander said softly. Emma's responding to the treatment. She asked for Mr. Buttons. Hope flooded through Sarah like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She's awake, and she's asking for her mom. Sarah stood on shaking legs, reaching for the bear. As her fingers touched the familiar worn fur, she felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks, the certainty that everything would be okay. Thank you, she whispered, clutching Mr. Buttons to her chest, not just for the money, but for seeing her, for letting her kindness matter. Alexander walked her to the door, and as she was about to leave, he spoke again. Sarah, Emma changed my life in 5 minutes in an elevator. People like her, people like you, you're the reason hope exists in this world. Don't ever doubt that. As Sarah hurried back to the hospital, Mr. Buttons tucked safely in her arms. She thought about the mysterious ways love travels through the world. Emma's simple act of sharing her comfort with a sad stranger had created a chain of kindness that had ultimately saved her own life. When she walked into Emma's room and saw her daughter's eyes open, bright and alert, Sarah placed Mr. Buttons gently into her waiting arms. Mommy, Emma whispered. Did the sad man get to borrow Mr. Buttons? I dreamed he needed him. Sarah kissed her daughter's forehead, her heart overflowing with gratitude for this child who saw the world through eyes of pure love. Yes, sweetheart, and because you were so kind, he was able to help us when we needed it most. Emma smiled and hugged her bear close. Mr. Buttons is magic, she said sleepily. He makes sad people happy. As Sarah watched her daughter drift back into peaceful sleep, she knew Emma was right. In a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving, her little girl had proven that love really was magic, and that sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness could change everything.